Hello and welcome, friends, fans, or anyone else interested in dinos. This is the first video in my series, Hatch to Devour. It is also the start of a completely free-to-play journey at the beginning of an account. It'll be geared more towards newer players for now, but could also provide a nice challenge for someone more seasoned. A goal is to provide some good takeaways no matter how long you've been playing Arena. Hopefully you find something different to sink your teeth into with this deck if you haven't been playing them already, or maybe you played them when they were in Standard, but definitely check them out in Historic. They're a lot of fun, always usually satisfying, and the games are over pretty quick either way, so you can fly through quite a few. Now, it'll be geared more towards newer players, but it could also provide a nice challenge for someone more seasoned. There's not a whole lot to play around with just because it's hyper focused on dinos and a few of their supporting cards, but that's going to get fleshed out pretty soon, and we're going to be climbing the ranked ladder pretty quick. At least that's the goal. But before we get started, I want to go over a couple points, highlight a few cards that I feel show dinos are well positioned and can do quite a few things. First off, commune with dinosaurs. This is the bread and butter spell. I feel it should be in any dinosaur deck. It's great at any point in the game, which is pretty important and pretty special for a card if you can say that. You see it turn 1. Well, it is the only turn 1 play usually that I use, but it is a turn 1 play, so that's important. But even later on, it'll help you dig. It'll help you smooth out the mana if you're looking for more red, more green, but usually that's not a problem. And it just makes the games go quite a bit smoother. It helps use up mana on turns where maybe you have one left over. You've been saving this for more information. Using it later on is also a good idea. You don't have to use it turn 1 if you have the various plays, so it can be better to hold on to it in some cases. But overall, I would just have 4 of them in the deck at all times. It's a common. I feel it's a no-brainer, so if you're not using it already or you're considering it, definitely put it in. You will not be disappointed. And now, next part, the 2-drops. The 2-drops are pretty important. Turn 2 getting one of these, the main ones being Marauding Raptor and Otepec Huntmaster. Sometimes Drover of the Mighty. But yeah, as long as you get a 2-drop, you can keep things moving at a pretty good pace. Marauding Raptor, he grows pretty big. He can be a decent threat on most turns, especially if you've played 2 dinos, sometimes even 3. He's going to be hitting for quite a bit, and people are going to probably want to block him, but if they don't, I mean, they're taking quite a bit of damage. It's pretty great value there. Otepec Huntmaster, another cost reduction, pairs well with Marauding Raptor. Of course, it's a little clunky if you play the Raptor first, but sometimes that's what happens, or that's the better play, especially if they have Stomp, Shock, something that is going to get rid of Huntmaster. You may want to just keep them in hand until they burn some sort of removal spells, damage-based ones. So, yeah, in that case, it can be a little iffy, but that interaction between the two is pretty much the only issue you'll run into, the only dead draw basically in this deck would be Otepec Huntmaster while you have a Marauding Raptor out. So if that's the only issue, that's pretty good. Then Drover of the Mighty, I've used him in the past some. For right now, starting out, I'm going to use all 4, but usually it's 2, just so I can really have that turn 2 play with 10 total 2 drops in most of the lists I use. Then we've got Thrashing Brontodon. This is probably one of my most favorite examples of dinosaurs and their versatility. It's a pretty great body, being 3/4, usually for 2 green, but even if it's not reduced, that's okay. You've got your removal for artifacts or enchantments, but if you say you end up don't needing it, the artifacts or enchantments aren't really causing you trouble, just swing with this guy, keep up aggression. It's on a pretty good body, so that's nice. It's not, your removal isn't attached to instant, a sorcery. That's not going to be possibly also getting some damage in on the opponent, whereas this guy is quite versatile. And then there's Ranging Raptors. Now this guy is pretty good for ramping. I've used him over the past few years pretty much in every variation. I've moved away from it recently just to try and up the aggression a bit, and it's worked out quite well. But you can get quite a few lands off it. It deters quite a bit of aggression because who wants to attack into this or block this? So you can also get some damage through, which can be pretty nice. Deathgorge Scavenger. This guy I haven't used too much, but he's actually becoming one of my favorites. Great in multiples, and you get a couple attacks with him or a few of them, and usually that's enough to exile a bunch of the key stuff from a graveyard. It's pretty hard for the opponent to get back momentum. You're taking out Uros, Croxa, anything like that. So it's definitely something I'm hoping to open in the packs. Then Rampaging Ferocidon. This guy, oh boy. He was banned in Standard and Mono Red during his time, and he's powerful. Players can't gain life is quite relevant for Mono White, especially since we're probably going to face that a fair bit in our first games. The Menace will get quite a bit of damage through in a lot of cases. People have a hard time blocking him, so that's pretty good. And then the damage from his other passive is quite good. The 1 damage, it does stack up. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you get multiples of this guy out, and that's going to add up pretty quick, and it's going to make it difficult for the opponent if they're doing some recursion, token strategies, that sort of thing. Then we got the classic Shifting Ceratops. Pretty self-explanatory. The Azorius Mono Blue Hate Dino, it works fantastic. It usually comes down pretty cheaply, but the reach, the trample, the haste, that's all very relevant. Ripjaw Raptor, the premier enraged dinosaur, I feel. The value you get from this guy, even drawing 1 card is good, but a lot of the time it's going to be more than 1, so there's nothing to complain about that. and of course the golden interaction. You have 2 Marauding Raptors out, and then you play Ripjaw Raptor. You're drawing 2 cards for 2 green, and you still have the 4/5, so you're probably drawing a 3rd or a 4th after that, which is crazy. Great value. Raging Swordtooth, haven't used him too much, but he is great for triggering Enrage from Ripjaw or ranging Raptors. He does clear out some stuff, but being a 5/5 trample, it's a pretty good body, and he can bring the opponent's creatures down in toughness, just in range of, say, being killed by Drover of the Mighty, 3/3, Thrashing Brontodon, even ranging Raptors. That 1 damage can be pretty relevant, along with getting the value from Ripjaw and ranging Raptors. So if I open him, I'll definitely put him in. Verdant Sun's Avatar, it's alright. It's costed too much for me in most cases, but again, if I open it, the life gain is pretty much impossible for aggro decks to recover from after they, blow everything they have. So it can be something to consider. At least if you open it, it's worth a try. You didn't waste any wild cards, so yeah. Then the lands. Temple of Abandon. I've used it here and there. It's not in the list all the time, and I'm not going to be opening these packs, so chances are it's not going to be in for a while. Stomping Ground. Now this is the first playset, and being a land, I think it's most important for consistency. I'm not going to be likely opening any packs from Ravnica, so I figured this was the best choice to use the few rare wild cards that I had. It's going to just help smooth out my first few games until I open up Rootbound Crag. Now, we'll cross our fingers, because this is one of, if not the most important card I'm hoping to open, saving a few wild cards, of course. Sheltered Thicket. It's been quite good, especially late game. The cycling is quite nice if you don't need the land, you have enough already. And being a mountain forest, it does help Rootbound Crag come into play untapped a little more often, which is nice. Crag Crown Pathway, Timber Crown Pathway, it's pretty good. I may redeem some rare wild cards for it later, but it hasn't always been necessary, and we should have a pretty easy time without it. Like I said before, the mana base is usually pretty smooth. Ceratops, you need 2 green, Ripjaw, Thrashing. Other than that, it's not too bad. You need, 1 green, red, 1. A lot of it is only needing 1 green, 1 red, or 1 of each, so that's not too difficult to play. Okay, now done with that stuff. Before we dive into the budget deck, like you heard me mention, Ixalan is the pack I'm hoping to open, and the pack I'm going to be focusing on. There's quite a few cards that won't be in the final build, but I think it highlights why Ixalan is the best pack if you're hoping to build a Dino deck for free. There's cards like Sentinel Totem you could open. I'd probably redeem wild cards for it pretty quickly because it's great against all the graveyard strategies. Rakdos, Arcanist, gets rid of Uros, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you open it, whether you craft it, it's going to be pretty important in the ranked ladder. Shaper's Sanctuary, it's great in multiples. I've always wanted to use it. I just never opened it on my main account. So if I get a few, it should be pretty good. There's lots of targeted removal, so I feel this could be a pretty decent option. And it's nice having another turn 1 play. Again, with Sentinel Totem, another turn 1 play. That's always feels pretty good. Dowsing Dagger, if we open it, we'll try it out. The interesting thing about it is the opponent gets 2 creature tokens, O2 plants, nothing really to worry about. But that could actually mean some damage when they're created under the opponent's control. If you have Rampaging Versatility out, it would be pretty good. If you have, say, 2, I mean, that's 4 damage to the opponent right there, which is a pretty cool interaction, and I don't know how often I'll get this flipped and transformed into Lost Veil, but it's worth a try, especially if I open it, not wasting any wild cards on it. But yeah, Lightning Strike, pretty self-explanatory, versatile, gets rid of quite a few things. Arcanist for sure. Fiery Cannonade. Now this is important. It's basically the same as Flame Sweep, but 2 damage, instant speed sweeper is been so important. It keeps goblins in check, elves now with Golgari elves or mono green. They're becoming quite a bit more common. At least I've seen them quite a bit. So yeah, the instant speed sweeper it's been important for me for years now, so I never go without it. Probably in the sideboard, but since the first few games are going to be best of 1, I might put it in the main board just so I don't get blown out by, say, mono red aggro. That's a pretty budget deck, so I'm figuring I'm going to face that quite a bit. Rampaging Versatility, again, that'd be fantastic to open him up. He's a core part of the 75, sometimes in the main, but usually in the sideboard. So yeah, if I open him up, save a wild card, perfect. Deathgorge Scavenger, again, another rare. Growing Rites of Ixalan, I don't really like it, but I mean, if I open 1 or 2, it's alright, I'll put it in. It can be pretty useful, but you end up with not having anything to use all that mana on if you do actually flip it. So at times it has been kind of bad in that case. Ranging again, be great to open some, save some wild cards. Ripjaw, another rare. Trove of Temptation could be pretty interesting. Making the opponent attack into something like Ripjaw Raptor, a bunch of the other big stuff, it's going to be pretty good, where otherwise they wouldn't have. And then also you get a treasure at the end step every turn, each of your turns, which has built up pretty quick. You get multiples of these out and you're making more than 1 treasure. Your opponent has to attack with more than 1 creature. So again, the more the merrier with that card. It's pretty good. Haven't used it too much, but it can be fun. Raging Swordtooth, again, might open them. Regisaur Alpha, another core for me for Dinosaur decks. Any variation, game 1, 2, doesn't matter. He stays in all 4 all the time. So yeah, Vanquisher's Banner, great in tribal decks. Definitely something I'll put in, but I'm not going to spend any wild cards on it. It'll be nice to open though. Again, Verdant Sun's Avatar, quite nice. Carnage Tyrant. Now, this is mainly the only mythic rare I use. In the past, I've tried other ones, the Great Henge or Embercleave, but this guy's pretty key, pretty important. I don't use him often at the moment right now, but if I was going to redeem mythic rare wildcards, I would definitely do this guy. However, he's an Ixalan, so hopefully we open a couple of them, save the wildcards. Then, of course, Rootbound Crag and Unclaimed Territory. This has been fantastic. It really helps with stuff that costs, 2 green, Carnage, Ripjaw, mainly those guys. It keeps the game going smooth. You always have what you need usually. It can be a little clunky with Otepec, Huntmaster, or Drover, but that is quite rare. So hopefully we open some Rootbound. But overall, you can see there's a lot of key cards. For me, Ripjaw Raptor, Death Gorge, Rampaging, Carnage Tyrant, Regisaur Alpha, those are all rares or mythics that I'm hoping to get a playset of, and it's all from Ixalan, along with the other supporting cards. So I think all that combined really show why Ixalan should be the pack you focus on. You could do Rivals of Ixalan, but I think right here really proves that Ixalan is where it's at. All right. Time to go over the deck. It's got quite a few substitutes, as you're going to see, but they're pretty decent. They've got pretty good bodies, a lot of trample, which will be nice. But first off, Commune. Like I said, 4 of all the time, good whenever. Drover, Scorching Dragonfire. Now I think this will be pretty relevant. It's versatile, hitting creatures or planeswalkers. Unfortunately, it doesn't hit players, but the exile will be good. I'm looking to use it against the Dreadhorde Arcanist for sure, but 3 damage, it's going to get rid of a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's a no-brainer at common. Definitely worth a try. If it doesn't work out, move to something else, but this is going to be pretty good. Savage Stomp, I opened one, but I probably won't add any more redeem wild cards. So yeah, that's just in there. Thrashing Brontodon 4 covers us for artifact enchantment removal. Grazing Whiptail, it's a common, helps us not get blown out by flyers so much. 4 toughness is pretty decent to block some of the stuff, the 2s, 3s, so it should be quite nice. Thrash of Raptors. Now I feel this guy's pretty good, even if it comes down for 4, it's almost always going to be a 5/3, but if it comes down, for 3 or for 2 even, that's a pretty great rate for a 5/3 trample. Pretty good size as well. It's going to be a lot of damage we get through with that, and yeah, being at a common, it's super budget. Charging Monstrosaur, trample, haste, 5/5. What's not to love about this guy? Gigantosaurus. Now I'm really only using it because it came with the free beginner decks, but I'm going to be taking him out pretty quick. He'll be one of the first things I replace for sure. Then Rampaging Brontodon. I like this guy. He's too expensive for my tastes, but I think he's going to do quite well with these beginning games, especially the first 50. He should go right through a lot of stuff. Of course, the opponents could be using this guy as well, but he was free, didn't have to spend anything. A Dinosaur, might as well. Then for the lands, opened up a Field of Ruin, so threw that in. Blast Zone, might as well. Gets rid of, tokens, anything. It's pretty good. So I figure, those two colorless lands, I don't want to go more than 2, maybe sometimes 3, but in the past I've tried 4. It's just been too clunky with the mana. Drover does fix things pretty well, but I prefer 2 colorless lands at most. Stomping Ground, redeem the wild cards for it. Rugged Highlands, it's a dual land, helps smooth mana. Then 7 forests, 7 mountain. Usually it's 1 mountain, 3 forests, or 2 and 4. But for now, starting out, I'll just keep it 7/7. But once I fill out all the other lands, I'll go down to probably 2 and 4, especially if I use Ranging Raptors. You want a lot for it to grab, so yeah, it helps quite a bit. And that is the deck. In the next episode, we'll hop into our first games, and it should be pretty interesting. Hope you enjoyed this first episode. If you have any questions, comments, please leave a like. I'll be around, and thanks for watching.